Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for responding and coming along to this morning's webinar. We're still waiting for a few people to join us, so we sort of held off starting there, and there's still a few more to come in. But by way of introduction, my name is Richard Wilson. I'm the Business Development Manager for DatacomIT. And I'll introduce our guest speakers who are also a major part of our presentation today from Wesley College. And joining us from Wesley College there is Bart Rutherford, who's the Senior Systems Librarian at Wesley, and also Margo Vaughan, who's the Curator of Collections at Wesley. So they'll be providing a bit of a presentation to everyone today on their Recollect journey and what they've been able to achieve through the use of Recollect and the sharing of their digital objects and their collections. Joining us also is Roger Mills, who's a Recollect consultant and digital preservation consultant. He'll be providing a presentation today, or introductory before we start, just as an overview for everyone on Recollect, to give you a bit of a background on what the product is before we look at Wesley College's specific use of the system. And facilitating today's webinars, Christine Chetafani, who is Marketing Manager. So thank you, Christine, for organising today's event. For those that are not familiar with who DatacomIT and Recollect are, just a little bit of a quick introduction. DatacomIT are a specialist provider of digitisation or digital preservation services, equipment and solutions like the Recollect product. And we typically work within the GLAM sector, so certainly within all of the galleries, libraries, archives and museums. So we provide a lot of specialist scanning services to preserve digital content, as well as equipment for people who might be undertaking their own digitisation, and of course the Recollect product for people to share and store their digital assets. The Recollect product itself is not developed by us. We're the Australian resellers for that solution, and it was originally developed by a company in New Zealand called New Zealand Micrographics, who are not dissimilar to our organisation in New Zealand, also specialising in services in that GLAM sector. And it was originally developed by them to assist their clients who had digitised their objects and were needing an online solution to both store that and to share those collections. And it became a real success story through the use of the deployment of that solution to their clients and the community engagement tools that the product actually has. And as a result of that success, the product went on to become a company in its own right. That happened back in around 2017 when DatacomIT also came on as the Australian distributor. And as part of that, there are now distributors for the product in both the UK and the US. So the product is now being marketed and installed globally. So that's a bit of a background on who DatacomIT are and who the Recollect, or where the Recollect product has evolved from. And I'll hand over now to Roger Mills, who I mentioned is our digital preservation consultant. He'll provide an introductory overview of the solution, focusing on what some of those key features are that will then be highlighted further from Bart and Margo on how it's being used at their school.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so thank you for that. Look, it's great to have the opportunity to give you an overview of Recollect today and how it can be employed by schools to showcase your archives for teachers, students and alumni and your broader community. I should say that I'm in charge of the implementation process with Recollect, and I've got a background in tertiary education and libraries myself. And I think Recollect's really pushing the envelope for how it can function not only as an archive and collections management system, but also how it provides discoverability, access and engagement for teaching and learning through its linked metadata model and community engagement tools. And we'll be speaking about that in a little bit more detail as we go through the presentation. So the best way to think about Recollect really is that it's an online digital asset and collection management system as a unified platform. So it stores and manages all of your digital assets in a database, as well as functioning as a community engagement solution. So What this means is that you can, it provides your school community with a way to, I guess, discover content through descriptive metadata and the linked metadata model that I was just talking about, which allows you to really create relationships between items in your archives and collections with each other, allowing really your metadata to kind of tell stories that are embedded in your collections. It also provides access to information by being able to view lots of different types of content in one platform, and of course from any internet-connected device. And importantly, allowing your school community to engage with collections through functions that enable them to tag and comment on items, to be able to share their knowledge and discoveries with their peers, and to be able to provide contributions to your collections by uploading their own content, and really creating let's say, a storehouse of community knowledge. Of course, the database aspect of it also allows you to manage archival work as well as preserving your collections through its additional digital preservation module. So let's look at some of the basics. Recollect content is hosted in the cloud by Amazon Web Services with unlimited storage capacity. You get a default of 500 gigabytes as an entry point, which can be increased in lots of 500 gigs. There's no limit on the amount of users, and it provides tiered access privileges to your volunteers and staff to be able to edit and manage content, be it, let's say, the moderation of contributions, reporting of site statistics, analytics, all the ability to manage these things into a workflow. It's also got OAI PMH compatible metadata harvesting, as well as the being linked with the Trove API as well. And as I was just saying, it's got an OAIS compliant digital preservation module as well. I think the key to Recollect's discoverability functions is really its universal digital viewer that allow you to view 3D content from your browser without having to download any third-party software. Multimedia assets, which allows you to play and caption tag audiovisual content such as oral histories, as well as a georeferencing functionality integrated with the Google Maps API, which can all be accessed from any internet-connected device, as I was saying before. And I'll demonstrate these functions as we jump into some live sites very shortly. So what I'd like to just look at now is the customized design features of Recollect and the way that different schools that we have, we've done implementations for in the recent past have decided to configure their Recollect sites. And of course, and I'm guessing everybody can see my screen. Richard and Christine, you'll tell me if you can't see this this browser window.
Absolutely, no, we can see it. It's all good.
Fantastic. Well, I'm not going to talk too much about archives and art collections from Wesley College because they're going to be doing that as well. But suffice it to say that the design that they have gone through was very much focused toward their particular personas. And of course, I should caveat this by saying part of the implementation process is that you enter into a discovery phase with us when you do the implementation, and we really drill down on your individual personas and how you think they're likely to want to access and engage with your site. So it's quite an important part of any Recollect implementation. And Wesley here have gone for a static, what we call carousel widget with their taxonomy drop-down menus, which just mean that the staff and students in the community and alumni can jump straight into areas of interest that they see once they land on the home page. They've got their collections widgets underneath this, and I won't talk too much about that because I know they're going to speak to that, as well as their browser widgets and the welcome text. If you look over to Auckland Grammar School, their archives, again, they've got these taxonomy drop-down menus, and look, we might say that amongst private schools or schools in general, there won't be too many differences in the types of personas, but I guess it reflects the types of community that they might also be aspiring to bring into looking at and engaging with their archives and collections. You'll see, first of all, that their carousel widget is one that they move through every few seconds, and that's, of course, available. And if you jump into a carousel widget item, it takes you straight through to that item in the Recollect collection. And on the right-hand side of all of these item views, you'll see the metadata that they have for each of the items. Look at the Wangari Boys High School in New Zealand here. Again, they've gone for the movable carousel items. You've got their browser widgets down here with what we call showcase widgets on the right-hand side, which is basically highlight collection items. So rather than taking you through to a collection, as we saw with Wesley College, you can jump straight through into an individual item itself. We've also recently done, or Recollect have recently implemented the Punahou Digital Archive, the school in Hawaii. And again, they've got a different community to what you might find in Australia, and that's reflected very much in the way that the site has been laid out. They've decided to have their browser widgets along the top here, and they're just really focusing on their collections widget here. So, for instance, you might go to their yearbooks, and it'll provide you with a collection of their yearbooks, and you can scroll down the page and see the whole collection here. And then they've got some itemized, customized collections that they've added at the bottom with a very, very customized footer, which contains all of the links to the various parts of the school and special projects and so forth. So that's a good cross-section of schools that we have currently, Recollect's currently implemented. So let's just move on to looking at the different types of image and document views that are available in Recollect. I like to start with this because it's a really good way to understand how the image view works. So here we jump straight into an item within Recollect, and down the left-hand side here, you have all of your tools that are available to you to expand or contract a particular image. You've got your text transcriptions, we'll talk about that shortly. You've got your ability to be able to favorite an items, and that's something I didn't mention just then, but on the navigation menu on the left-hand side, you've got the ability to record your browsing history, as well as being able to save your searches so that you can go back to particular items that were of interest to you. So going back to the item view now for a second. This is an old map going back to, where's it, 1905, they think. And you can zoom right in quite close to 200% there, but you'll notice that the street lots, the numbers aren't quite clear enough. So the zoom 200% really allows you to zoom into, a high-res copy of a map such as this, and really see those details in quite significant detail. The other thing I like about this is that you can jump from this old map from 1905 into the Google Maps API, which is linked through the georeferencing functionality, so that on the one hand, you can be looking at a map from 1905, and then jump straight into that view of the Adelaide CBD as it stands today. So it's just a way of really providing those cultural references or geographical references to location, and getting an understanding or providing an understanding to your users about the differences between periods and histories in time. Thought we might just have a look at the document view now, which provides you with the ability to, once you've ingested documents, it immediately transcribes the OCR layer, which in an old school list, for instance, like this, is very useful because it's quite an old document, and it may not pick up all of these elements. So if I actually have a look at this, there we go. Provides you with the ability to be able to see it in quite a lot of detail through the OCR transcription. The other really good part about this is the being able to transcribe handwritten texts as well. So here's an old postcard from the First World War. If we jump straight into there, it allows you to be able to transcribe that text on the basis that you can really scroll quite close into each of the items. The other feature, of course, of Recollect is its three-dimensional viewer, which allows you to be able to view items in 3 dimensions without, as I was saying before, being able to access, having to access a third-party software to do that. This is actually from an archaeological dig in Newcastle, where they found a whole range of Indigenous artifacts, which the University of Newcastle have scanned as OBJ files and uploaded to Recollect. Again, very useful for objects that you might have in your archives. And it's really this linked data model of metadata that allows your collections to tell stories from the metadata that is embedded within the collections themselves. So what it allows you to do is to be able to, for instance, start with a person. It could be a principal or a headmistress. That might be related to a document that might mention them or that they may have written. It might be an old school list. That through that metadata then links to an oral history. It might be an interview with that principal at a later point in which they actually speak about an event. Perhaps it is a particular significant event for the school, which might then link to a place external to the school. It might be an Anzac ceremony or something like that. And so you start to see how you can build up these links between items in this sort of forward and backward relational links system. And as a way of demonstrating, this is a really good example. It's an example in which one of the first airmen that attempted the England to Australia flight. We have what we call an information item page here, which draws in all of the documents that are related to that first England to Australia flight. And on the right-hand side of this metadata here, you can see lots of documents that relate to his untimely death or mysterious death at one attempt to fly from England to Australia. His father indeed wrote a pamphlet petitioning the Minister for Defence at the time to conduct an inquiry as to what happened to his son. But then you'll see also down on the right-hand side other letters from, for instance, other members of that flight team who weren't part of the accident, who basically are saying there's no point in conducting an inquiry. And it basically uncovers this whole story around the mysterious death of this airman that was taking that first England to Australia flight. Then you have the information about that first England flight, and of course all of these documents and photographs and items related to that, all linked to that particular item. Acting as a sort of information hub, if you like, for an explanation and engagement for your community to really dig down into those finer details. And it's that sort of almost sort of going down a rabbit warren, if you like, of being able to start in one place, for instance, looking at the journey of an airman to Australia, through to all of these documents about the inquiry or not inquiry, through to the eventual successful air flight itself. And what we're talking here too is really about special collections. And while Ipswich Libraries isn't a school site, I'm just drawing our attention to this because Melanie Rush, who's the digital archivist at Ipswich Libraries, has created this fantastic collection of school resources. She's got a background in teaching herself, and she's engaged with local schools to create assignments from local studies and histories from primary school level to high school and beyond. And it's just a way of jumping into these special collections where you, for instance, a drama class or at a school can look at different organizations and curated collections around drama in that area. And it's, I think, having a tertiary background myself, I think it's just Recollect offers all of these opportunities for schools to be able to not only engage with their alumni and their community, but also really provide those elements to the curriculum straight from the Recollect site itself. Of course, timelines is another interesting aspect of Recollect, and here we're jumping back to this First England Australia flight, which the State Library of South Australia has created out of that, and you can basically jump straight through to collection items here, but you can also move along the timeline itself. And of course, if you click one of these images, you jump into the item itself, and you then get all of the information related to that item. University of Newcastle have created one here with their chancellors and vice chancellors, and I guess there's opportunities here for schools to outline the history of the school and the staff and the principals and the headmistresses and so forth, as a way of being able to demonstrate the history of the school in a linear way that can provide that information in a very interactive format for viewers. Of course, Recollect not only involves dealing with online digital archives, but of course it also deals with physical collections as well. And this is where, with the University of Waikato, there's examples here of collection items that are, for instance, related to a particular topic, where there's physical items that you can request through the LMS system of the University of Waikato. So through the circular links function in Recollect, you can jump straight through into a library management system as well, or an archives management system as well. So if you have particular items already within an archive system that you want to keep in there, there's the opportunity for you to create these circular links between Recollect and your current existing system, using the advanced functions, of course, that Recollect has for community engagement and those sorts of things. Talking about community engagements, we might have a look at how your students and your staff and alumni can engage with the collections in this way. And one of these ways is being able to add image tags to a particular item. And here we can see there's a group of tags of school teachers at the Upper Hutt Primary School that have been tagged. And it's, it really is as simple as just being able to add a tag to an item. And if that item itself has a link, you can then link straight through to that item within the collection itself. In order to do that, you need to set up the information item for it to be able to link through to. Of course, we're also able to add a recollection, which means that your alumni might actually recognize one of those teachers and say, for instance, and then you could just add that to the story. As this is a client side, I'm not going to add that to the story, but you would basically, I can do that. Then I'll delete it later on. And that immediately becomes available on the left-hand side, and these can build up over a period of time. So here's an example of the ways in which your alumni can actually engage in quite a lot of detail with your collections and actually really enrich the archive itself through this information. Of course, the ability to be able to tag individual items through the georeferencing functionality. Here we have the Upper Hutt school, and I'd actually copied that earlier on before the presentation. What we just do is, because it recognizes that through the API, you can just add that there, and then you can add that as a geotag. And it'll immediately appear on that left-hand side so that your community can then go and locate where the school is today, or any other researchers, for instance, that might be interested in the actual location of the school. Of course, it also allows the ability to be able to upload items. So you might have alumni that have photographs of their time at the school, or even contemporary photographs from students or staff that might start to allow you to build up your archives and collections by simply pressing the upload button and adding the various bits of data, which then go in to be moderated by yourselves. And I should just caveat what I was just demonstrating with those image tags as well. All of that can be moderated by administrators in the back end of the site, which we'll jump into very shortly. In fact, we'll jump into it straight away now. Recollect has this item type template, which basically reflects that metadata down on the right-hand side of the screen. So where you got item number, you can see how this is following in terms of the fields that it is echoing in the template. These templates are blank when we first receive your Recollect site instance, and we populate this with a metadata schema that you might have, or you might be exporting from your current system, but we have to build it from scratch. So whether it's the Australian series system you're using in your archives, or if it's a library, it might be Mark II or Dublin Core, we can simply build up the templates from the system that you currently have. And that allows you to then be able to download a spreadsheet to populate with the metadata that you're transferring across, and then we can create the ingest of your content from that point onwards. The other thing about this is the ways in which you can add links to your items. So that might be authors and contributors or volumes, where a particular item is located, and other types of menus. So these are kind of basically reflecting what you were seeing on the right-hand side there. So where there's a creator, that might take you through to a link to a photographer, for instance, or a writer of a publication, or a teacher who's created a particular section of a school list. All of those sort of things are configurable within the metadata schema itself. And these are so configurable, you can move them around or delete them in any shape or form that you wish. I said earlier on that Recollect is also integrated with Trove, and I thought I'd just demonstrate how some of the field names are demonstrated from Trove and into Recollect itself. So where you might have other contributor in Trove, that might be your recipient or photographed by or illustrator, for instance. And as a way of being able to show you what this looks like in Trove, here's an example of quite an interesting group of immigrant stories. You can simply go to the read function here, and it'll take you straight through to that item in Recollect itself. And hence, we have a way of being able to add your archives and collections to the Trove database, expanding the interest and resource that you have to a wider community as well, to learn about the history of your school and to basically boost the profile of your archive itself. That's pretty much all I've got for you. I just thought I'd kind of summarize what we've been discussing here. Recollect really it's a comprehensive digital asset and collection management system, which handles both digital and physical collections. Moving forward, once you've received the necessary training to evolve your Recollect site, it's constantly being improved and updated, so it's scalable into the future for you to add new things to it. And it really provides your school community with a way to, as I was saying, discover, access, and engage with your collections and archives in unique and interactive ways, as I've just been demonstrating. And I might just finish off before I pass over to Bart, that we are more than happy to provide a more tailored presentation to your school and your community that takes into account the special types of items that you might have within your collections. And you can do that by contacting myself or Richard Wilson and arranging a bespoke presentation that will be tailored more toward your needs. What I've provided today is just a brief overview of the Recollect features, but do get in contact if you'd wish to get more of as I say, a tailored presentation for your needs. Now, what I might do here is just jump out of my slides.
Thanks, Roger. I'll just jump in there quickly because I forgot to mention it before we started. So just while Roger and Bart are transitioning their presentations, there is a button for users if you have got a question. There's either the chat function or there is a specific button for questions. If you have any questions, please just jot them down now or put them in there as we're going through with that presentation. And after Bart's finished and Margot's finished with their presentation, we'll come back and go through and answer those questions for you. So I have seen, Prudence, thank you. There is one question there about documents, so we will come back to that, but we'll do that after Bart and Margot have given you their overview of their Recollect solution. So thank you, Bart. I'll hand over to yourself.
Thank you, Richard and Roger. Just going to swap screens myself. Now, bear with us because Margot and I were going to sit together when we did this, and I've gone and put myself into ISO. Yes, if we talk over the top of each other, we apologise. This is our Archives and Art Collection. The link's here, and you'll please feel free to go visit it, get our stats up. Margot, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Margo Vaughan. I'm the Curator of Collections here at Wesley. For those who don't know much about the school, it's old and it's big and it has a lot of material. We have quite a significant art collection. We have a lot of documents and we have a lot of text-based or document-based material. So the school's over 150 years old. It's one of the largest schools in the Southern Hemisphere and covers 3 campuses. There's over 3,000 students and a lot of staff and even more alumni. And we're very lucky because they are very involved in the school. And to be honest, a lot of the funds for this have come from alumni. They're very keen to see the material that they donate to the school on display, and so we've been fortunate to be able to source funds from them. So roughly, we are glam. We have gallery items, we have sort of library items and museum items as well. So we don't have a lot of display space at any of the campuses. So I think if anything has shown us from COVID, everything's gone digital, and this has been a real push to get our archives up on the screen where more people can see them. So that's been really, really good from our point of view. So we're in the process. We're only new at it. We've only really been uploading information really this year. We started with a digital collection, but it was it was a bit limited. It was cumbersome. To be honest, I had a lot of trouble using it. And also increasingly privacy issues.
True.
People would, not very often, but occasionally students would say, I don't want my photo available. And it took a lot of work behind the scenes, which Bart did, and, you know, to try and remove that. So privacy was one of the things that we were really focused on. So where we are now, so we've got Recollect, and we've moved what was on the previous system into that, and with the aim of, as you can see from Roger's presentation, there is so much that it can do, and I think we're just starting at the moment. We're putting on
Yes,
stories and things like that now.
absolutely. Yes, we found that there's so much scope. It keeps surprising me how much scope we've got in the Recollect system that we probably even didn't realise when we took it on board. As Margot said, we had many disparate collections, and we had a quite successful online collection, but it was very object based. It was very difficult to rapidly take something out of it, and it didn't really allow for the story element for that interconnect. Back in 2020, when we first came up with this idea of moving, we were looking at putting our Indigenous exhibitions in our art collection that hadn't been put up before, and we'll have a look at that later. And that was 2021. We wanted online exhibitions. We wanted to engage our publics. We also have this lovely, and it's still running, this lovely little Microsoft Access database. This was our original desire, was to get this Access database into another system because it's going to fall over one day. Also not user friendly. 25 years old. It's only 25 years old. We had many photos. We're still getting photos scanned. We're still getting documents scanned. We've got a whole new collection, which we can't talk about, but that's due to get scanned later in this year, and that'll be very exciting for next year. But our content DM had histories, magazines, and chronicles up there. Solid for its time, but we needed to go somewhere a bit fresher. And then we had collections that weren't yet digitized. So we went with Recollect for its ease of content management. To bit that ability, I think we're repeating ourselves a little bit, but you can see the slide deck's a bit all over the place. That ability to maintain privacy, and I did have to rip down another object recently, and it really took about 5 minutes to do versus about an hour to do the last time. And it doesn't happen very often, but it's very flexible. You can just redact that one object quite quickly. And also, with changes in privacy laws over the years, we would have put our school chronicles up online quite quickly previously, but now we tend to put a rolling 13-year wall around them just to protect the students that are currently in the school. Just make it a little harder for people to dig up the dirt on them. No, they don't do that. Ease of preservation of our history. And we have, as Margot says, we've got over 150-year-old history, so we've got quite a lot of material in there. Basically an affordable system and a system with backups and support. And I think that was very important. And you may have, I popped past the slide, but the partnership with Datacom and Recollect, Datacom for the implementation process, Recollect for the platform and the maintenance support side of it has been very important to us. Now I'm running two screens here, so just so I can see where I'm up to. Along the way, we also took the opportunity to correct some decisions we made with the original system. One of those was with dates. We put our dates in quite strangely. And our original system basically had all our compound objects in as pages and then connected together as objects, where we took the opportunity to put them back into the system as single objects. Our early chronicles were bound so that you had May, August, December in one, and that would be, say, 1865. And initially, I put them into the system as a bound object for 1865, but I took the opportunity in the transfer to split them back up into their own individual components, and that's made them look a lot fresher. And our original priorities of sort of trying to get our Access database into the system ended up getting flipped. That came for a couple of reasons, but it was also that we realized that our Access data just needed such a lot of cleaning that it wasn't going to be practical to try and do it as the priority. And oddly enough, I had a thought this morning as to how I might be able to fix that, but I won't have that conversation here. But we did promise personas and wireframes in our presentation topic. And for working with Roger and his team, we did look at our stakeholders and basically define them as personas, and then that led us into the wireframe process before we actually got into the page creation process. So I'm just going to have a quick look at that. So here are our personas. Margo, if you want to talk through these.
These are basically the 5 types of people who access the collection. Because we have the art collection, we do get a lot of inquiries regarding the paintings. We get a lot of family historians, generally children looking into their grandfathers or great-grandfathers and family trees. Mr. Cardigan would be the retiree with plenty of time who can spend hours searching, and students and staff who want to use the collection and do some research there. So they're the 5 sort of types of people who would commonly come to me with a research question and say, can you find an image or information or a painting or something about cadets or something for the students? So that was how we decided, how do we set up the page so it's easy for people to navigate. We have a very specific collection on military service because we've got somebody who's done so much research, yes. An old collegian and former council member, Philip Powell. So he's written some books. He's done research on everything to do with Wesley students and war service. And so that's why we have one particular section just devoted to that, because that ultimately is one of our retiree projects.
And the Recollect system has enabled us to enable Philip to be able to add to the system, which we could not do before.
Yes, yeah.
From these personas, we came up with these lovely wireframes. And so we sketched them all out. And you can see, have we got military at the top at the minute? No, we probably haven't. Is it in that one? No. But it's very, very brushstroke. Here's another one. But you can see the basic elements. We took the elements, we sketched them up. You can now start to see the footers and things coming into place. You can see the taxonomies coming into place at the top. We were aiming for quite a clean look. From here, we developed this up in Adobe Xd, which I took a shining to. And this is our first mock-up. Couple of things. We went for very clean collection run along the middle. Military history's popped up into the taxonomy at the top now. The art collections have got their own topic. Images and people have got their own topic. Publications has got their own taxonomy at the top. The taxonomies are just another way of getting into these collections. You can either group things together in a collection or just look at everything, basically. And then we brought them out into the collection tab. There's 5 on the screen. It works quite nicely on a monitor that's sort of set to that sort of width. But even if you narrow it down, it's reflowable. So it even on a mobile phone, it actually doesn't look too terrible. It just sort of flows into a streamline. Very clean in the sense that we've got a welcome screen. Actually, this is a bigger screen there. Just a welcome commentary there. we looked at a timeline at one stage, and I had to play with it, and we backburned it for a while. You'll also see down the bottom we used the we had the word cloud widget. Now this was the mock-up of the word cloud widget. This is what we sort of hoped it would look like, but when we actually fed it into the data, it basically Wesley College came out really, really large, and not a lot of the things we wanted to highlight came out. So we actually turned it back off again. And so when we went from the draft to the final, you can see we actually dropped the word cloud. And that's, again, the beauty of the system is you don't want a word cloud, you just turn it off and it disappears. So quite a similarity. I'm going to say this, just wanted a very clean banner at the top. And at the minute, we haven't changed it much from the mock-up. It will shift, we will change the banner photos, but I really wanted it to be as close to the mock-up as possible so that we could stay on board with actually getting the site built and clean, and then we could start to look at changing the images, changing the photos, etc. So this is very close to its original site. So we've started to add up some more collections into the system. We are developing, as Margot said, the military history out with Philip's help, because that's invaluable and it's a very rich history that's in there. I might actually this stage jump to the site. Let me change windows. Let's actually, so this is actually, can you see the live site? Can somebody just confirm that? Anybody?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, I'll just stop sharing and reshare. So come back to this one. Share site, share window, share this window. Is that the live site?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. So you can see from the wireframe that this is actually very, very close. It's quite clean. I didn't want people having to scroll down the bottom of the screen too far. So it's actually quite tight. All of the blocks are, you can't see me pointing, but all of the blocks are the widgets. And then up here, we've got our art collections. We've got two of them up at the minute. We've got the Adobe collection. When was that donated, Margo?
In the early 1980s. It was a bequest.
Thank you. It was a
of
bequest.
over 100 paintings.
It's exceedingly rich collection up there, and it's up for anybody to view. And we've just in the last 2 months put up our Indigenous Art Collection, which is currently scattered all over the college, but it has been gathered together in one spot for an exhibition. And so that gave us an opportunity to take this rich collection and give it its own place in the system. We also have student art prize collections, and there are additional collections to that. Under our images, we are starting to highlight some of our various collections. This jelly collection was not up in the original system. We had it, Datacom had scanned it for us, and it was actually very easy for us to then actually just click into it, just get that collection up online very, very quickly. Only took it didn't take very long at all to put that one up. Mm-hmm. Military service, we've got many of our books. Philip's title, Come On Lads. We've got some medals in here. We've started regrouping that. So, for example, this is one view of it. If I just go down to the Willis collection, this is Lieutenant Willis, Margo? Captain Willis. And then a little bit on him, and then some objects that belong to him. So his medal collection is with Wesley College. We're also starting to put in some objects. We don't have any 3D scans of objects yet, but we're starting to look at the various things around this college, including our Otello. That's not a particularly good picture of him. I must swap that. Let's go somewhere else.
There's some more down the bottom.
Oh, is there some more down the bottom? I'll go back to him. Let's go back. Where is he? Oh yes, there's a nicer one. That's better. That's better. We've just had him clean, Margo.
Yes.
Is that a set of headphones?
No.
Here's some shots.
That's his handkerchief.
That's his handkerchief. Here's a shot of him being cleaned. There he is. And then we've got his history over here in our description area here. We've started to gathering together some people, principals of Wesley College. This is endless. There's so many of them. And then the big one, the publications over here, including all our chronicles. Now, again, this is just the raw browse of anything that has publication on it. If I go back to home and I go into the actual publications collection, I can now actually narrow that down. These were quite rich. These were the original prospectuses. Again, a collection that wasn't originally up and are now available online for us to browse through. Roger was showing the OCRing previously. It's actually come up quite nicely for these, so they're easy to dig through and have a look at what life was like back in the what was this 1881, for example. So there was a quite rich for teaching history. We're finding this for students to have a look at. What have I got on screen here? The fees. There you go. So that was that one. I'll just pop over the Indigenous Art Collection because that's our latest one. Again, here's one view of it. Quite rich, but I also promised that we would have a look at it virtually, and I was quite excited to get this up and running. So let's have a look at it here. I'll go in via Art Collection. And we'll go via Indigenous Art Collection. And then down here is, I said we gathered it all into a current event. Here's the event link. And then the virtual exhibition is buried a little bit, but here it is. And so we took a 3D camera into the exhibition that was housed in the city. And let's just play it through. It plays through quite nicely. And here's the exhibition as it was housed. Margo, do you want to say anything about the actual exhibition?
It's the first time that we've had all our Indigenous works together in one room. So it's been fabulous to have that. They're normally up on walls across the 3 campuses. So a lot of people were put out that their favourite paintings were being taken away. We'll be on at the Sofitel coming up very shortly from the end of June. So a lot of these works will be shown there. But it's an invaluable way of being able to show the collection that we have so that more people get to see it and enjoy it. And again, most of these paintings have been donated to the school. So we've got some very generous old collegians and they love this. They love being able to see everything in one place.
There you go. I'm just going to check my other notes to see that I've covered off everything we were actually going to. Oh, I know what I want to swap back. I'm just going to swap screens back, everybody.
Excellent. That's just in looking at that time, but
yep.
We have got time. No, we do have time to have a look at that last item, but just we're getting towards the end of our session and we'll take some questions. So let's have a look at your last item and then anything else that you needed to cover and we can take any questions.
Hop back to the PowerPoint.
Perhaps while Bart's doing that, I could answer a couple of questions here. Oh, there he is.
Oh, am I back? Do you want you? Do you want you back? Oh, very quick. I'll get rid of this very quickly. It just to show that in the last month since we put up that Indigenous Art Collection, our stats, the blues on the right are actually last year coming into this year, and you can see we've jumped up in page views very strongly. So now that it's up we've also started to do some internal promotion on it, and that's jumped the site up quite strongly. And all these stats are available within the Recollect platform itself. I can make this PowerPoint available with the presentation, and thank the Recollect team and everybody. Okay, I'll now stop sharing. Okay.
Thanks so much, Bart. Virtual
Thank you. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you very much, Bart and Margot, for sort of talking about your Recollect journey and how the system evolved and what your plans are for the future. It was excellent. Thank you. There are, as I said, a couple of questions that we've got here, and I'll just jump back. I think there was one left in the chat here from Prudence, just going back here. So the question was, is there a difference between documents created by a person and those where a person is mentioned?
Yeah.
Roger?
Yeah, so Prudence, what you can do through the metadata schema that I showed you in the back end there under the hood, you can create links to a person who is mentioned in a document that can then be displayed on the right-hand side column of an item view, and that creator, as I was talking about, can be the person who actually wrote the document itself. So you can link to both of those people. As long as you create them as information items within the site, you can then link between a document to the person who created it and a person who is mentioned in it. Anything else there?
Sorry, just taking myself off mute. So back into the questions. I've got another question here from Rosalind Malone to Bart and Margot. Do you set priorities for your digitisation for Recollect?
Yes, we did. So the first things that we digitised and from the previous site were the chronicles, because that's where the bulk of the information about the school and students, former students, that's where it is. So that was the first thing to be done. Likewise, the Lion magazines. The Chronicle comes out now once a year. The Lion is 3 times a year. Other publications, and it was great because we did a bulk scanning, and thank you to Richard for doing that, with songbooks and gift books and various other booklet type things. So that was our priority. Since then, the prospectuses have been done and a few other things. As far as Recollect goes, with what it looks like, we focused on the art collection because it's colourful, it's easy to do. We had images, it was easy to put up and quick to put up. And the same with the military service. Philip Powell did all that. So that's why there's a lot of information about those 2 sections. Publications have come from the previous site, and now we'll be focusing on images, photos that have been digitised and are yet to be digitised, and stories.
And I think it's, and this also sort of answers one of the other questions about why Recollect. It's the ability to rapidly respond. We had an old, an ex-teacher die about a month ago, and they're doing a piece on him for the Lion magazine. And so I was showing the person that's writing the piece how to dig through the system to find that person. But while we were talking, I started to build out a biography page for them, so that once that story is put together, I can then put it straight into the system. And that rapid response is actually something we just could not have done before. And so we can build out stories as they come to light. We also looked at things like military came up with the anniversaries, the Anzac. So those timelines we can respond to an upcoming timeline. We did put this system in after the 150th anniversary of the college. Otherwise, we probably would have done some things a little bit differently. And there is also some bits and pieces in other systems that are still yet to sort of be dragged into this one. So we rather than duplicate what was in, say, our public intranet site, we've left that for the minute, but we will bring a lot of those stories across to Recollect as well, but they're not a priority because it's a duplication. Somebody asked about the Access database. Yes, I will drag the data out of the Access database. I'll give you a good example of what the problem was. For example, there's a line in the Access database that says honor boards, and the very last field of it then has all the honor boards in the last field. So they're not in a format that makes them easily to take that last field and then strip it into a data line. But I literally had this thought this morning that what I might do is take everything that is not the problem and drop it into Recollect, and then go back and then pick the stories that we want to focus on. So as we sort of take, like, for example, all the chronicles are in, so I can stop looking at them and then start looking at different chunks of it. So I will chunk what's in the Access database and then start working on those elements. And actually, I probably didn't say this when I first started this. I got into this as a librarian with a bit of a database head, and so that's I'm not an archivist as such. I've had to teach myself an archivist's mindset along the way. So I'm sort of on a continual learning journey as I do this. But I bring to it that librarians. Like, okay, I want a taxonomy, I'm going to make a list. So I've got Excel spreadsheets in the background with subject headings on them that we're going to try and incorporate into the system as well. And I've got some sneaky ideas as to how I might be able to do that so that they just become available to us within the system. Other questions?
Yeah, there's one more there from Tracy Bradford, which I guess is both to Bart and Margot. Who's interested to know how you arrived at your decision to implement Recollect, and did you look at other products such as Archive Manager and Archive Virtual, and what were the things that got Recollect over the line for you?
Again, I suppose it's that storytelling capability. It is the that linked data capability that you can even throw data into this system that doesn't have a template item on it, and it'll tell you that it doesn't have a template for it, and then you can make a decision as to whether you want to create a template item for it or not. It's rapidly, if you create data like orphan data that say somebody tags a person in a photo but you don't have a page for them, you can rapidly create pages for those people as you go. Had a look at Cortex. That was another system we did have a look at. There was a couple in the background. We talked around with a few people, but it was also the complete package with Recollect of being able to get the support behind it that sort of threw us down that line. So that's where we came from.
Thanks for that, Bart. And I think the last question I've got there is from Joanne Cavalin, just in relation to the cost of Consult, and I presume that's directed at what's the cost of DatacomIT providing that implementation service. And so basically, I can tell you that there are 2 to 3 main costs associated with Recollect. One is that implementation fee, where we work through a 16 to 18 week implementation process. Where we go through those workshops or those implementation workshops where we look at your personas and look at the website design and how that's going to be, and also massage and work with your data to create the templates in Recollect. And that's typically a fixed cost for that implementation in the sort of realms of around $15,000 as a one-off cost to customize the solution for you. And then the Recollect subscription, depending on what subscription you go for, would vary in cost, whether you're going for a professional subscription, which Wesley College have, or a enterprise subscription. And the main difference between the two, they both are customized for you through that implementation phase. But the professional subscription, once that has been customized, is a fixed design thereafter. And you can, of course, add content and add new collections and items into that structure that you've built, but it's fixed, whereas the Enterprise Edition of Recollect, you can then change and update and anything you wanted to add to data templates and the like moving forward. And happy to share with anyone if they wanted to get in touch with Roger or myself to have a further discussion about what those costs are, or to have that personal demonstration of the Recollect solution tailored to your own your own collection. There is one more question there from Peter Harris. And how long do we have with training? And maybe I'll get Roger to talk with that, because it's sort of a two-pronged approach with the training. We do some foundation training, but perhaps I'll hand over to Roger to talk through that.
Yeah, so look, the training follows the implementation. So we have an intensive period of 6 weeks in which you'll be working with us kind of 2 or 3 hours a week. We'll do the persona workshop. We'll also do a training session. We'll do the data workshop. We'll also do a training session. So the training follows the implementation process all the way through, so that by the end of it, you have all of the tools and knowledge at your disposal to be able to continue updating the site and evolving it as more content comes into it.
Thank you, Roger. And I think I'm just scrolling through. I don't think I've missed anyone else's questions there. Okay, there we go. Richard Tracy Bradford. Rich and Roger, where are you physically based if we want to organise a face-to-face? So I'm based here in Melbourne in our office here just on St Kilda Road and Albert Road, and Roger's based in Sydney. So if you're either in Melbourne or Sydney, but of course we do travel. We'll be in Canberra next week. And so, yeah, please don't hesitate to get in touch, and we can organise to meet with you at a convenient time.
Yeah. And I'll be in, obviously, Melbourne for the VALA conference in June, so I'll be down there for that if you are Melbourne-based. But many of our presentations are also done online. So what that revolves around is me having a discussion with you about your particular archive and your needs and requirements, and then I put together a presentation based around that. So whether it's face-to-face or whether it's online, we try and design that presentation to your particular needs.
Yeah. And of course, we use tools such as this and Teams and all those other platforms that everyone's become very accustomed to during the lockdowns to facilitate that, as well as our implementation process as well. So I think, again, we've got everyone else's questions. So if there is someone has another question, don't hesitate to jump at or
Dominique is currently typing, but maybe we can take that offline if we want to.
That's all right. Well, let's finish the question. I'll just do, I guess, a bit of a wrap up when we can come back to it. But I wanted to thank both Bart and Margot very much for coming along and joining us today. And of course, to everyone that came along and attended, hopefully you found it very informative to have an understanding in general of what the Recollect solution is, and also how Wesley College have been able to implement it and showcase their collections. So thank you everyone very much once again. I can't see. Roger, you said there was another question. Oh, in the chat.
It might have just been a thank you.
I think just trying to get into the chat.
And it should also be said, Bart is battling isolation with COVID.
I managed not to cough.
You did very well.
So thank you so much.
I said, don't make me laugh.
Doing that.
So just in wrapping up, just letting everyone know we will actually send out an email after today's session with a link to the recording of this. So if you did need to go back and to review it again or to share with other colleagues, and again, we'd be very happy to hear from you if you wanted to talk with us further about the Recollect solution, or for us to provide you with a personal demonstration of the solution. So thank you all very much once again, and we'll all say goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.